Chainsmoker Cat is easily one of the most controversial anime airing this season. Hop online and you'll find hundreds of viewers complaining that this apparent comedy, starring a cast of adorable catgirls, is so disgusting that it's hard to watch. Although I don't quite agree, I completely understand where they're coming from. Comedies are supposed to make you laugh, but unless you're big on poop jokes and scatological humor, Yani Neko won't tickle your funny bone whatsoever. So, what's going on here? Did Netflix miss the mark with this one? Are we watching the anime equivalent of shock value trash like Euphoria Season 3? Well, far from it. The error this time doesn't lie with the show itself, but the lens through which we are watching it. After all, Chainsmoker Cat isn't a comedy, it's a tragedy. At 10 out of 10, Not in Your Stomach makes you rethink your entire life, bona fide tragedy with a banger opening. What some feared will be a tobacco industry psyop to get thousands of weeps into smoking through gorgeous animation and Neko Mimi turned out to be the most aggressive anti-smoking campaign the medium has ever seen. Instead of sanitizing the source material by hiding a character's nicotine addiction behind a cartoonish lollipop like the overseas release of One Piece, this show takes the opposite approach. Yani Neko goes on the offensive and shows you the unfettered reality of nicotine addiction in its full, foul-smelling, tar-smothered glory. The show follows Sato Yani, a young adult catgirl living alone in the suburbs of an unnamed Japanese city. For the first few seconds, you might be tricked into thinking she's just another hot anime character who just happens to smoke to heighten her sex appeal. Examples of this classic anime trope include Aki from Chainsaw Man, Spike from Cowboy Bebop, and everyone's favorite sexual awakening, Revy from Black Lagoon. These characters use cigarette smoking as a stylized accessory to boost their cool factor. Conversely, Yani Neko hits us with the contrast between its aesthetic presentation and the grimy reality of cigarette addiction almost immediately. One moment, she's wistfully blowing out smoke from her balcony on a beautiful day. The next, she's seen frantically fishing for a mostly preserved cigarette butt at the bottom of a rancid trash bag. And it's not just Yani's actions that paint the picture of the Chainsmoker Cat. As it often happens when someone falls into the gaping maw of addiction, the environment around Yani bears all the hallmarks of a nicotine den. Cigarette butts scattered throughout, a balcony railing rusted raw from years of putting out cigarettes, and most defining of all, a thick film of tar residue coating absolutely every surface in her home, including the floor, the walls, and even the freaking trash bags piled up in the corners. Even the bathroom, a temple of cleanliness, looks like a biohazard. In fact, it may be one of the worst parts of the apartment. This suffocating environment isn't just a grimy background for the show's gags, it's a physical manifestation of Yani's mental state. At this point, I think the only reason why the landlord doesn't kick her out is that he'd have to renovate the entire unit from the ground up if he hopes to get another tenant who's not as much of a junkie. Well, that and... well, yeah. But to Yani, none of this seems to matter, just as long as she can keep on smoking. She'll do absolutely anything to get her hands on the next cancer stick. If you thought rummaging through the trash was bleak, wait till you see her fishing out cigarettes directly out of dog poop. And this is something people who've dealt with addiction can understand better than anybody. You see, it's a matter of distorted perspective. To us, her situation is evidently deplorable, but Yani lives for those fleeting moments where she wins at her own little game of keeping the nicotine levels up. We even see her wax poetic about the pristine beauty of a freshly unsealed pack, finding an ineffable comfort in taking out just enough cigarettes so her cheap lighter slots perfectly inside. There is order here. There is completion. And then comes the sharp shift in perspective. What happens to those cigarettes she took out of the pack? Well, she shoved them all into her mouth and smokes them simultaneously, wearing a facial expression that nobody could mistake for pleasure. What looked like a peaceful ritual of comfort is revealed to be a mere survival response. Despite what she might tell herself, all she's doing is following orders from the deepest, most animalistic part of her brain. The contrast between the comfy self-image of the smoker and the horrifying reality of the addict is laid bare for all to see. And it doesn't stop there. Being a Chainsmoker Cat doesn't just ruin Yani's lung health and her living situation. Addiction has systematically wormed its way into all aspects of her life. For one, she's fundamentally unemployable. She can't keep a standard shift job because she can't go without a smoking break every 15 minutes. She can't work as a cleaning lady because her tar-stained smoker hands tarnish everything she touches. She also seems mostly estranged from her family, and even her little sister Imoko, who clearly loves her to bits, avoids visiting because the acrid stench of Yani's apartment is enough to make her vomit violently. The line between wanting to smoke and needing to smoke has become completely blurred. Yani is no longer smoking just to cope with life. Instead, she endures life just to keep on smoking. What may once have been smoking to live has entirely transformed into living to smoke. Now, some of you may be wondering, what's so wrong with her throwing her life away if that's what she wants to do? Why is her habit anyone else's business? Well, as we saw with her little sister, Imoko, it's not just Yani paying the price. When it comes to addiction, collateral damage is the name of the game. This point is driven home in the show through the figure of Yani's landlord. Visually, he may look like a stereotypical ugly bastard, the kind you'd find in a certain type of animated content. But narratively, he comes across as a genuinely good guy who's just doing his job and minding his own business. I mean, if someone showered me in tar juice after spending all morning cleaning cigarette butts from the parking lot, I'd show up to their apartment with a machete. This guy doesn't even properly complain at her because he's just that much of a cinnamon roll. Despite his remarkable patience, every interaction with the Chainsmoker Cat seems to trigger in him vivid memories of abuse and neglect at the hands of a parent who had also become an avatar of addiction. Much like the landlord's parents, Yani's choices don't exist in a vacuum. She's not a harmless, isolated victim of her circumstances. Instead, her addiction acts like radiation, slowly poisoning everyone around her. Looking at the facts, those of you with unusually healthy lives and regulated nervous systems might be wondering, why the hell doesn't Yani just quit? The answer is as simple as it is bleak. Because she can't. Yani may be impulsive and irresponsible, but she's not entirely blind to her situation. Deep down, she knows her lifestyle isn't sustainable. Over the course of the first episode, we see her try to control her urges several times, and each time she seems entirely convinced that she can crawl out of the hole. She always fails almost immediately. Smoking has become second nature to her. It's not something she even has to think about. The scene that best captures this dynamic is when Yani and her sister meet up at a cafe. Yani boasts that she's 3 days clean, prompting rare but heartfelt praise from the surprised Imoko. Riding the high of validation, Yani lowers her guard for just a second and immediately lights up a cigarette to celebrate. Happy means cigarettes, sad means cigarettes, bored means cigarettes. It's cigarettes all the way down. It's just muscle memory by now. Anyone who's tried to let go of a comforting addiction can relate. Whether it's cigarettes, alcohol, gaming, and even doom scrolling, the pattern is one and the same. One moment, you're willing to commit 100% to quitting the habit and turning your life around. The next, you're negotiating away your willpower with thoughts like, just one won't hurt, or I'll start for real tomorrow. Escaping addiction is never as simple as just deciding to stop, and that's what makes Chainsmoker Cat such a relatable tragedy. The door to a better life is always open to Yani, but addiction makes it impossible for her to take a step forward. To understand why Yani and millions of real-world addicts find it so hard to stop, it pays to take a look at how the trap was set in the first place. While the show hasn't yet revealed Yani's super smoker origin story, we can make an educated guess based on human nature. Well, beast-folk nature in her case. People don't start abusing substances just because they crave self-destruction. They do it to escape the crushing pressure of daily life. Life in the 2020s can be a dreadful experience. Between the decay of communities, friendships that exist entirely over Discord, and the alienating grind of meaningless jobs, there's very little to keep us from falling down the comforting rabbit hole of addiction. And once you're there, it can easily become self-sustaining. You see, there are always two paths in front of the addict. You can worry about your addiction expenses, how it affects your health, and every other reason why you need to stop and take back control of your life. Or you can light up and, like Yani, be freed from your worries. In that moment of dopaminergic surge, you feel like anything is possible, it'll all work out. That feeling lasts exactly until the next real-world difficulty slaps you in the face, and then it's back to choosing. For the shackled brain of the addict, the choice is simple. Why suffer when we can just take a break from life and smoke another cigarette? And so, the solution to the pain becomes the exact same thing that causes it. It's a perfect loop. The most terrifying aspect of the show isn't even what happens to Yani, but what it does to a certain subset of the audience. Despite the dreary picture painted by the catgirl failure's life, I actually saw some people online confessing that watching Yani Neko had them itching for a cigarette. These weren't just active smokers looking for an excuse to light up either. A staggering number of people who had successfully quit were seriously considering picking the habit back up just because they saw a cartoon catgirl smoking on TV. It sounds absurd, but to be completely honest with you, I felt it too. I've never been addicted to cigarettes, but I did smoke a few packs back in my teenage years, and even I felt the call of Marlboro after watching Yani inhale a whole stick in a single puff with a face of pure, unadulterated relief. And that's the insidious thing about addiction. Even when a piece of media goes out of its way to show you the filth, the isolation, and the financial ruin of nicotine dependency, the mere reminder that cigarettes exist can be enough to pull you back in. Even if you manage to quit, it never really goes away. You can't really cure an addiction, you just learn to live with the discomfort. Addictive substances can completely rewire the way your brain's reward system functions. Here's how it works. Whenever you indulge in an addictive behavior, let's stick with cigarettes for the time being, your brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter that makes you feel happy and satisfied. As time passes, the dopamine in your system depletes, and your brain tells you to get it back up again. So you go and smoke another cigarette. Except that now, that single cigarette doesn't feel nearly as good as it did before. No biggie, you can just smoke 2 of them, or 3, or 5 at a time. But as you continue to indulge in your substance of choice, you're not only building a tolerance to the substance itself, but to the dopamine released whenever you do. As your dopamine tolerance increases, the ceiling for what feels good rises with it. You consume more substance, you release more dopamine, and you feel happy for a moment, and the cycle begins anew. But each time, it's harder to reach that peak. The problem is that it doesn't just affect how you feel whenever you're indulging. It colors your entire experience. The things that used to make you happy, such as watching a great movie, cooking a good meal, or spending time with your loved ones, just don't feel as good anymore. And with no incentive to do so, you simply stop. At the most basic level, your brain makes you move in pursuit of pleasure. If the dopamine hit isn't enough, it becomes extremely hard to find any motivation to do anything. When you reach the extremes, like Yani, even the basic stuff, such as brushing your teeth or going out for a walk in the sun, well, it just doesn't cut it anymore. The only thing that you feel like doing is feeding your addiction. You know how some people say they only get the urge to smoke whenever they're drinking? Or that classic stereotype of people smoking right after having sex? It's because their brain wants to reach that dopamine peak. These are moments that should, in any normal person, feel absolutely amazing. But the addict's brain knows it could squeeze just a little bit more dopamine from it, and so you smoke. This is beautifully captured by one of the final scenes in the first episode. It's the scene that made me want to make this entire video in the first place. After waking up from a nightmare where she was diagnosed with lung cancer, Yani calls her sister in tears to tell her that she'll give up smoking. For real this time. Imoko, adorable as she is, tells her to look out the window and marvel at the Milky Way galaxy that's somehow perfectly visible despite the light pollution you'd expect from a developed Japanese city. As Yani marvels at the wonders of nature, the realization begins to dawn on the viewer, whether because you've experienced it before or because you know there will be no show if the main character dropped the habit in episode 1, you know what's about to happen. This moment with her sister might be magical, but her brain can't help but feel there's something missing to make it just right, and so she lights up a cigarette. Comedy and tragedy tend to share a common starting point. Usually, it's a bad decision that leads to ever-increasing chaos. The difference lies in what happens later. In a comedy, there's a chance for redemption. Every conflict eventually reaches a turning point where, by chance or by the main character's efforts, disaster is avoided, and life continues. The characters and the audience are left with a funny feeling of, wow, I can't believe that just happened. Tragedy takes the opposite direction. The exit, in this case quitting smoking, is visible to both the audience and the characters therein, but driven by fate or by their own personal flaws, the hero doubles down on the same choices that got them into this mess. In that sense, Chainsmoker Cat is a textbook classical tragedy. Yani's life is a haunting loop of perfectly avoidable disaster made inevitable by the crushing weight of addiction. It's not like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Instead, it's like watching the victims of the train wreck refusing to get off the wagon because they don't want to face the consequences of being late for work, all while slowly suffocating from the smoke building up inside. Emphasis on smoke. I'm excited to see where the show takes the tragedy of Yani the Chainsmoker Cat, but if I had to guess, it won't end with Yani breaking free from Marlboro's curse. On the other hand, you're right in time to avoid the disaster of missing the next video if you press the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.